I watched in horror as my grandmother shoved the love letter I'd carefully penned for my boyfriend, Jordan, straight into the blazing fireplace. Little did I know that single act of destruction would haunt me for decades, reshaping my entire understanding of love, family, and the man I was meant to become. The acrid smell of burning paper hit me before I even dropped my duffel bag in the doorway of Grandma Eleanor's cozy Ohio farmhouse. It was supposed to be a quick weekend visit in the fall of 2005. Mom and Dad were already in the kitchen arguing about turkey prices, and I had slipped upstairs earlier to hide the envelope under my pillow. Jordan had written it first, pouring out how much he missed me during his teaching internship in Columbus, but I had answered with pages of my own heart. Now that those pages curled black at the edges while Grandma stood poker straight in her floral apron, poker in hand. "Ethan James Harper," she said, voice steady as the flames, "I will not have this filth under my roof." My stomach dropped. Jordan was still outside, unloading the car, oblivious. I lunged for the fireplace, but it was too late. Charred fragments floated up the chimney like dying moths. "Grandma, that was private. You had no right." "No right." Her blue eyes, the same shade as mine, flashed with something between fury and fear. "I raise your father in this house. I bury my husband here, and I will not watch my only grandson throw his life away on sin." The word landed like a slap. I had come out to my parents 2 years earlier at college, and they had nodded awkwardly, changed the subject, and never brought it up again. Grandma had been the last to know because I kept putting it off. Now she knew in the worst way possible. Jordan stepped inside right then, blonde hair tousled from the wind, carrying my laptop bag. He froze when he saw my face. "Babe, what's wrong?" Grandma didn't even glance at him. "You can stay for supper, but after that I expect you both gone." My mother appeared in the hallway, wiping her hands on a dish towel, eyes wide but silent. Dad stayed in the kitchen. The silence was worse than shouting. That night, Jordan and I sat on the creaky porch swing while crickets sang in the cornfields. "She burned it," I whispered, voice cracking. "Every word." Jordan pulled me close, his hand warm on my back. "We'll write 1,000 more. This doesn't change us." But it did. Something inside me splintered. I had always carried a quiet shame I thought I'd outgrown. Late-night prayers in high school, deleting texts before games, laughing too loud at straight jokes. Grandma's fire lit it all up again. By morning, I told my parents we were leaving early. Mom hugged me stiffly. Dad slipped me $50 for gas. Grandma didn't come out to say goodbye. The drive back to Columbus was quiet. Jordan tried music, then stories about his third graders, but I kept seeing those ashes. When we reached our tiny off-campus apartment, I went straight to bed without eating. Jordan curled behind me, whispering, "I love you, Ethan. We'll be okay." I wanted to believe him. I really did. The next weeks blurred into survival. I buried myself in senior year marketing classes. Jordan finished his student teaching. We avoided talking about Ohio. But every time the phone rang with Mom's number, my chest tightened. Grandma never called. One rainy Thursday, I came home to find Jordan at the kitchen table with 2 plane tickets to Chicago. "New start," he said softly. "I got an offer at a charter school. You can finish your degree online or transfer. Let's leave the ashes behind." I stared at the tickets, heart pounding with equal parts terror and hope. Chicago meant distance from family judgment, but it also meant facing the world as 2 men in love without the safety net of college. What if I'm not strong enough? I asked. Jordan took my hands. "Then we'll be strong together." We packed the next weekend. As the U-Haul pulled away from campus, I glanced back once. Somewhere in Ohio, a fireplace still held the memory of burned paper. I didn't know it then, but that fire had only just begun its long work on my soul. Chicago swallowed us whole in the winter of 2006. Our studio in Logan Square had one window that rattled when the L train passed, but it was ours. Jordan started teaching 3rd grade at a progressive charter school where no one blinked at his boyfriend picking him up after work. I landed an entry-level job at a small ad agency downtown, writing copy for toothpaste and insurance. Life felt possible, until the nightmares started. I'd wake gasping, smelling smoke, Grandma's voice echoing sin. Jordan would hold me until I calmed, but the distance grew anyway. I started making excuses to stay late at the office. When he asked why, I snapped that I was building our future. The truth was simpler and uglier. Part of me still believed Grandma might be right. We met Tyler at a quiet gay coffee shop on Milwaukee Avenue one Saturday. He was tall, black, and studying social work at UIC. Within minutes, he had us laughing about disastrous family holidays. My grandma still sends me Bible verses and birthday cards, he said, rolling his eyes. But I sent her photos of me and my husband anyway. Petty, but effective. Tyler became our anchor. Friday nights turned into game nights in his Wicker Park apartment with his partner Miguel. For the first time I saw gay men living openly, holding hands at Cubs games, arguing about IKEA furniture, planning futures. It should have healed me. Instead, it highlighted my own cracks. At work, my boss, Mr. Harlan, pulled me aside after a client meeting. "You're talented, Ethan, but tone it down. Clients in this town still like their account reps traditional." He didn't say the word gay, but the meaning was clear. I nodded, smiled, and started wearing my wedding ring on a chain under my shirt, even though Jordan and I weren't married yet. Jordan noticed. One night in March, he set down his lesson plans and looked at me across the tiny table. "You flinch when I kiss you goodbye at the station now. Is this about Ohio or about me?" The question gutted me. It's not you. It's everything. I keep thinking if I was stronger, Grandma wouldn't have. "Burned your letter?" Jordan finished quietly. "Ethan, she burned paper. She didn't burn us." I wanted to believe him. Instead, I pulled away, muttering about deadlines. That weekend, I went alone to the Art Institute and stood in front of a Rothko painting until the colors blurred. When I came home, Jordan was asleep on the couch, still in his teaching clothes. I covered him with a blanket and whispered sorry into the dark. Spring brought change. Tyler introduced me to Thomas, a 60-year-old gay lawyer who volunteered at the LGBT Center. Thomas listened to my story over coffee and said something that stuck. "Shame is a fire you keep feeding. Starve it." I started volunteering at the center on weekends, helping with legal aid for queer youth. Jordan supported it, even though it meant less time together. Slowly, the nightmares faded, but the distance between us lingered like smoke in the walls. By 2008, the agency had promoted me to junior account manager. I wore suits that felt like armor. Jordan proposed on a freezing January night on the Navy Pier, Ferris wheel lights sparkling around us. I said yes through tears. We planned a small civil ceremony for the next summer. Then the betrayal came from inside the building. A straight colleague named Derek overheard me on a call with Jordan during lunch. By Monday, the office buzzed with whispers. Clients started requesting someone else on the account. Mr. Harlan called me in. "I warned you. Take some time. Figure out what you want." I walked out numb. Jordan met me at a diner near his school, eyes red from crying after I texted him. "We can move again," he said. "Anywhere." But running felt like surrender. Tyler and Miguel threw us a dinner party that weekend. Thomas was there, sharp in a cashmere sweater. "You have choices now," he told me quietly on the balcony. "Hide and survive, or stand and live." I chose to fight. I applied to law school at night while keeping my day job. Jordan supported every late study session. But the strain showed. One argument exploded when he found the chain with my ring hidden in my sock drawer. "If you're ashamed of me, just say it." "I'm not," I shouted. "I'm ashamed of how weak I still feel." We didn't speak for 2 days. Tyler dragged me to a support group. There I listened to men my age talk about parents who never came around. For the first time, I admitted out loud that Grandma's fire still burned inside me. Jordan and I reconciled on the fire escape under summer stars. "I choose you every day," I told him, "even when I'm scared." He kissed me like the city lights were cheering us on. Law school applications went out. I got into DePaul. The agency let me go with a severance check that felt like hush money. I took it and never looked back. Law school was brutal and beautiful. I clerked for Thomas during summers. He became the father figure I never knew I needed, teaching me not just contracts, but how to carry myself without apology. Jordan finished his master's and moved up to assistant principal. We bought a tiny condo in Andersonville with rainbow flags in every window. In 2011, we married in a small park ceremony with Tyler as best man and my parents surprisingly in attendance. Mom cried. Dad shook Jordan's hand. No word from Grandma. The real test came in 2013 when Mom called. Grandma had suffered a stroke. She's asking for you, Mom said. I drove to Ohio alone. The farmhouse looked smaller, paint peeling. Grandma sat in a wheelchair on the porch, thinner, eyes cloudy. She didn't apologize. She simply said, "You turned out all right anyway." I left angrier than when I arrived. Back in Chicago, I threw myself into a big case at Thomas's firm, defending a trans teen against school discrimination. Winning it felt like revenge and healing at once. Jordan and I celebrated with Tyler and Miguel at a rooftop bar. For the first time in years, I felt proud without reservation. But pride is fragile. In 2015, Jordan's school board faced budget cuts. He was almost laid off because he suspected of family values complaints. I offered to quit the firm and move anywhere. He refused. "We've run enough," he said. "This is our home." That night, I wrote my first real letter to Grandma since the fire. I told her about our life, our friends, the work that mattered. I didn't send it. Instead, I burned it myself in our tiny backyard grill, watching the pages curl just like she had done. The smoke smelled different this time, cleaner. The years stacked like legal briefs. By 2020, I was partner at the firm. Jordan ran his own charter elementary school. We fostered 2 teenagers who needed safe homes, watching them graduate and thrive. Tyler and Miguel adopted twins. Thomas retired, but still called every Sunday with advice and bad dad jokes. Life was full, yet the old wound itched on quiet nights. I kept the charred corner of that original letter in my wallet like a talisman. Jordan knew. He never asked me to throw it away. The pandemic hit hard. We lost Thomas to COVID in April 2021. At his virtual memorial, I spoke about the man who taught me to starve shame. Afterward, Jordan held me while I cried for the father I'd chosen. In 2025, my phone rang with an unknown Ohio number. The nursing home. Grandma Eleanor was 95, failing fast, and asking for her grandson, the lawyer. "She wants you to draft her will," the nurse said. "She's very insistent." I sat on our back porch for a long time after hanging up. Jordan brought me coffee. "You don't have to go." "I think I do," I answered. "Not for her. For me." The drive to Ohio felt shorter than 30 years should allow. The farmhouse had been sold years ago. Grandma lived in a sunny room at Sunnyside Care Center, surrounded by photos I didn't recognize. Her wedding, my father as a boy, one faded picture of a young man I had never seen. She looked tiny in a hospital bed, oxygen tubing across her cheeks. But her eyes still held that steel. "Ethan," she rasped. "Sit. We have work to do." I pulled out my laptop. For 2 hours, we went through assets, house sale proceeds, savings, jewelry. She left everything to my parents and a small trust for local 4-H kids. Practical, unsentimental. Then she asked the nurse to leave us alone. "I have one more thing," she said. Her voice trembled for the first time. "A letter, to be read at my funeral. I wrote it years ago, but I want you to polish it. Lawyer's touch." I opened a new document. She dictated slowly. "I, Eleanor Thompson, confess I burned my grandson's love letter in 2005 because I was terrified. My younger brother Robert came out in 1957. My parents sent him to one of those hospitals that promised to fix boys like him. He came home broken and hanged himself in the barn the next spring. I was 23. I swore no one in my family would ever suffer that way again. So when I found Ethan's letter, I thought I was saving him. I was wrong. Love like his and Jordan's is the kind that saves people. I'm sorry, Ethan. Forgive an old woman who only knew how to protect the wrong way." Tears blurred the screen. I looked up. Grandma's face was wet too. "I kept the ashes," she whispered, "in a little tin on my nightstand all these years. Take it. It belongs to you now." I reached for the small rusted box. Inside were gray flakes and one unburned corner with my handwriting. "Forever yours, Ethan." We sat in silence for a long time. Then I took her fragile hand. "I forgive you, Grandma, and I think I finally forgive myself, too." She smiled, small and tired. "Good boy. Now go live the life I was too scared to let you have." I flew home the next day, carrying the tin. Jordan met me at the airport. I showed him the ashes and the letter. He cried with me right there in baggage claim. Grandma passed 2 weeks later. At the funeral, I read her confession aloud. My parents hugged me afterward. Real hugs, no stiffness. Mom whispered, "We should have done better." Back in Chicago that night, Jordan and I stood on our porch under the same stars we'd seen 20 years earlier. I scattered the last of the ashes into the wind. They caught the city lights and disappeared. I had crossed decades of fire and come out the other side whole. True or false? Sometimes the cruelest act of family love can become the very spark that finally sets you free.